Alright you guys, I'm going to go ahead and start for doing the full soil mapping. You guys have to understand pacing, and then we're going to take some soil samples and determine the type of soil. So to start with pacing, you're going to pretend like you're walking normal, and you're going to keep your pace, and whatever that pace is, that distance between the 2 feet is going to be your pace. For me to go from here to here to here is 3.5 feet, or 1 3/4 feet per step. So we're going to start at our first sample, we're going to test what type of soil it is, and the whole time that this is happening, you need to make sure that you're looking at the surroundings and the features in the background so that you can draw your map correctly. So we're going to start, we're on the back end of the football field at the high school. Got some lovely storage Connex boxes here. And we have the river running across right here. And then, here we go. I couldn't find the marker. We're going to take our first sample right here where I have this mark. You can see it's at a slight incline. And I just need to grab my water real quick. Remove the top debris. Make a collection of the soil. Put it in your hand. Try to take out like the rocks and chunks if you can. Remember, you want it to resemble that of literally like a small dog turd. Like, sorry for a lack of better description, but that's what you want it to be. So I'm going to play around until I get it in that kind of a shape. And notice that I have a lot of residue left on my hands. Normally when that happens, you do have some form of a clay content. I can run this a little bit through my fingers and it does feel kind of soft. The softness is a good signifier that it has some kind of silt inside. Not too gritty. So this is what we call our clod, and then we're going to try to make a ribbon off of it. So I put it between my forefinger and my thumb, and I hold on to it with my hands, and then I gently push with my thumb, and I'm going to keep pushing, and this is what we call a ribbon. And the length of the ribbon is going to determine what type of a soil it is. So if I do that, I'm going to keep going one more time, and I'll pick up that piece, and you can look and see about how long it was. So that piece was a little bit longer. Let me do it again and try to catch it this time. Okay, so if I was to measure that correctly, you're looking at least a solid inch. And so based off of information that I've told you, where it feels like it definitely has a little bit of silt in it, it definitely feels like it has some clay based off the residue. It's not a high clay content. You'd want it to be closer to 2 inches, but this is definitely some form of a silt mix. I'd call it more of like a silt loam because you can see the sparkles of the sand, you have the residue of the clay, and it has the silkiness of the silt. So for it to have that kind of a length, I would call it more of a silty loam. So that's your first marker. So once again, take a look at the surroundings, look at all the features that you guys can see here. You're going to need it for your map. I'm going to take out the marker. Ken is my filmer, and Ken is going to go ahead and make sure you guys get to see all the things surrounding.
And our next marker will be that way. She's now counting off her paces.
26, 27, 28, okay, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41. Looking at 41 paces, so 41 paces from over there to over here, 41 times 3.5, you get to do that math. And then we're going to be at our second marker here. So I'm on the edge of the football field at the high school. Don't tell Coach St. Jacques. Definitely right away, I can tell this has a higher sand concentration. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead, try to make my ribbon. That was 1 piece, 2 piece. They're about a 1/2 inch in length. Another piece about 1/2 inch in length. We're looking at sand. It definitely has a little bit of silt, but high sand concentration. I don't know if you can even hear it. That noise that it makes because it's so sandy, and that's partly because they definitely have a lot of that in the track for the jumps and stuff. So high sand, maybe a sand loam, but definitely a main sand type of a soil. If you get in a ball and you throw it too and pieces break like it just did, that also tells you it's sand. So I'm gonna go ahead now and paste to the next one. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So 28 paces to our third sample. So we still have the field right here around us. Take a look at the features. You're gonna have to draw them. On the other side, we have the back of the gym and the 300 wing and our welding shop right over here. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a sample of this third type. Oh, this is horrible. Definitely filler stuff. Okay, nice turd, right? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead, start pushing. Got about 1/2 inch. Little pieces, even less than 1/2 inch. That one's about another 1/2 inch. This is solid sand. There's not much else in here at all. All that washes off my hands, pretty simple. You can hear how crunchy it is when you touch it. So this will be our sand. The second stop will be a sandy loam. And then that first stop is gonna be more of that silty type of a mix, okay? All right, so we're gonna go ahead and I'll give you the instructions here in a second back in my classroom. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and you are going to have to draw a map. Now, if you have just a regular lined piece of paper, you don't have anything else, that's perfectly fine. If you're able to get a smaller piece of construction paper, that works as well. Knowing the size of your paper is going to determine the size of your scale. Because we paste a really long distance. You can't have every inch equals 1 foot across this paper. So what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to add up all of your measurements, and I'm not gonna do that part for you. So you have to add from distance 1 to 2 and distance 2 to 3. And let's say that hypothetically, because you have to do the math, this is 50 feet and this is 75 feet. You have 125 feet that you need to cover across your piece of paper. Well, if your paper is only 11 inches this way, you would take the 125 feet, divide by 11 inches. And that would give you how far each inch on paper is in real life. So let me go ahead and do that math. I need a calculator. So 125 divided by 11 is 11.36. So we're just gonna say it would be 11 feet. So 1 inch on paper equals 11 feet in real life. Now, is that what you're doing? No, you have to take the distance that I walked, however many steps that I said it was, or however many strides I said it was. You need to times that by 3.5, because every one from one length to the other is 3.5. So whatever number I told you, times that by 3.5 feet. And that first distance, we'll go here, do the same thing from distance 2 to 3, whatever number I told you, times it by 3.5, Whatever that is, that number goes here. Do that math, add the 2 up, divide it by the length of your paper, and that will become your scale. That part might be a little difficult to understand, so take your time and watch that a couple times to learn that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to start with our first point, which was over here by the river. So you're going to put a number 1, and you also need to draw some of those features. So we know that the river was running through across here. So you could draw a feature that resembles the river. We know that there were, storage boxes over here, okay, and some kind of a building that segued. So whatever it is that you want to draw, go back and watch that video and draw those features. And remember, this took the class that I got to have live an hour and a half to complete this properly, for us to walk, to take pictures, and to perform this. So it's going to take you a little bit of time. Then, to calculate your distance from point 1 to point 2, and there was that rail that went here in between, and then this here is the actual football field, right? Okay, from point 1 to point 2, you'll have to remember what that pace was. So let's say that it was 50. If our pace was 50, you would have to divide 50 divided by 11. And whatever that answer is how many inches from here to here. So you would take your ruler, count how many inches that is, and then that would be the mark for point 2. Then you'll do the exact same from point 2 over here to the side where I took the sample for point 3. Whatever that distance is, you're going to go ahead and divide it by your scale, and then that'll be the distance in inches from point 2 to point 3 on your guys' drawing. Make sure you include all those other features that are around. I will try to take pictures of some of the ones in the last class that look decent. If there's a tree somewhere, feel free to draw a tree. This is a good example of a pine tree. Okay, and so you can draw those features on your guys' paper. You then also need to include your scale. So for my paper, it was 1 inch equals 11 feet. And you then need to include an area that has soil 1, 2, and 3. Go back and look at the notes from chapter 3 that talked about soil classification, and you need to figure out what class each of these types of soil is and what type of soil it was. So class 1 is definitely not a main agricultural area. It did have a pretty steep slope. Based on the information, I would probably give it a class 5 or a class 6. And so if, let's just say hypothetically that it's a class 5, you would put class 5, and we called it a silty loam. So you'll write that information. Also, you need to have a directional arrow of some form. East was in this direction, so you could go ahead and you could put east with an arrow pointed in that direction to show the directional arrow. So once you get that down, you're going to have all your features. The measurements are important. I'm going to look at your scale. I'm going to measure that distance, and it has to make sense based off of my pacing. If there's any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, good luck.